the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, say they cannot verify that the fuel purchased for Afghan security forces in recent years did not come from Iran.
BP's guilty plea concedes BP managers ignored test readings that indicated combustible gas had seeped into the well on the evening of April 20th, 2010.
During the hack of the Fed, Anonymous stole the login credentials of some 4,000 bankers from across the country.
And welcome back to the show here. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
We are the rock stars of the information world. We are taking over the internet with our broadcast promoting freedom, truth, and justice across the internet airwaves.
And we don't care what the source is. We'll take information from it.
And we'll make sure that we check our sources and remind you to check our sources, because we do not create commercials that say trust us. We create news and information. And let's run a clip and get into it.
Washington's attempts to corner Iran with sanctions against its oil industry may have been undermined by the U.S. itself. The Pentagon admitted it cannot verify where exactly the U.S. purchased over $1 billion worth of fuel for its operations in Afghanistan in recent years. RT's Gayanet Chichakan now reports.
The U.S. gives money to the Afghan government to buy fuel for its forces. Now, U.S. officials, the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, say they cannot verify that the fuel purchased for Afghan security forces in recent years did not come from Iran. It could be their way of saying that it most probably did come from Iran. And it could mean that the U.S. has violated its own sanctions there by letting U.S. taxpayer dollars go to Iranian coffers. The sanctions that the U.S. has put in place not only bar U.S. companies from doing business with Iran, but also punish third-party countries for doing business with Iran. But no matter how many rounds of sanctions are in effect, they are never watertight.
So that's how we start things off, talking about the fact that the United States might have bought Iranian oil.
But don't you know they're leading the world in ethics and democracy?
Yes, of course, and promoting extraordinary rendition while they're doing it. Right here, Radio Free Canada, we're talking about the real story. We're also talking about the fact that not only the states screw up, BP did too.
Yeah, but they got away with it.
Yes, once again, just like the RCMP murdering people on YouTube, BP got away with the biggest crime that you've ever seen. Check this out. It's Radio Free Canada.
Tonight, the British oil company BP is guilty of criminal charges of manslaughter in the deaths of 11 workers from the Deepwater Horizon drilling rig. A federal judge in New Orleans accepted BP's guilty plea today. The disaster in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010 unleashed the largest accidental oil spill ever. BP agreed to pay $4.5 billion, which includes the biggest criminal fine in U.S. history. Mark Strassman is in New Orleans.
BP's guilty plea concedes BP managers ignored test readings that indicated combustible gas had seeped into the well on the evening of April 20th, 2010. Hours later, the Deepwater Horizon rig exploded. The company also admitted to lying about how much oil was leaking. They said at first a few thousand barrels per day leaked from the well, when BP's own engineers knew it was more than 60,000 barrels a day. Shelley Anderson's husband, Jason, a 35-year-old rig supervisor, was killed in the explosion. She was given 5 minutes in court to speak for herself, their daughter Lacey, now 7, and son River, now 4.
When I told my son River that I had to be here and I had to go and do this for Daddy, he got very excited. His face lit up. I want to go see Daddy too. I want to go see my daddy. And I had to explain to him that I was coming here to do something for Daddy, but that Daddy wasn't going to actually be here and that we would never ever see him again.
This plea deal puts the criminal case behind BP as a company, but BP still could face paying as much as $23 billion in government fines for violating the Clean Water Act. Mark Strassman,
So we
CBS
want you to
News,
check your facts. The fact that BP lied. Okay, just flat out.
Well, you know why they lied?
Why?
Because the more oil that leaked, the more they'd have to pay.
That's right. Okay, so they said a few thousand barrels when they knew.
60,000 a day.
Okay, and, you know, they didn't get their assets seized, and plus, they've been financed right now. The American government has subsidized BP for more development.
The Pentagon is the biggest purchaser of oil from BP.
So, and of course, that's the biggest financial concern that they have in the entire United States, killing people.
Yes, of course. That's what they export.
So they fill our gas tank so it's okay.
Yes.
Because civilians, well,
they're
who cares?
They're only brown people.
Yeah. Don't worry about the brown people. We got fascism to install worldwide. Let's go.
Of course, it was a little thing that happened, 5 years ago, called the economic crisis, the financial crisis, crime of the century.
Yes.
And this organization was complicit in setting that up.
Check it out.
Did Standard & Poor's ignore its own standards? The Justice Department is suing S&P, accusing the credit rating agency of fraud for knowingly understating the risk of mortgage investments. CNN provides some context.
Remember those glowing ratings that S&P gave to the subprime mortgage investments in 2007? Oh, those subprime mortgage investments that were all flops and almost took down the global economy.
The New York Times explains the suit specifically accuses S&P of scheming to defraud investors from September 2004 through October 2007. But Standard & Poor's is denying all wrongdoing, saying it made the same assumptions the rest of the world did when it considered the investments safe. S&P made a statement before the lawsuit was even filed, saying it's without legal merit and unjustified, and that S&P will vigorously defend against erroneous claims. An analyst on CNBC explains S&P wanted to make its opening statement to the media, which would essentially serve as the jury the DOJ will try to convince.
They're going to have to find some smoking bazooka in order to get a jury to actually convict. So they're going to do what federal prosecutors always do. They're going to vilify this company in the media.
Standard & Poor's is not the only rating agency that gave the risky investments higher than deserved ratings. Moody's, Fitch, and others did as well. So why is the DOJ singling only S&P out? One blogger points out S&P started a chain reaction when it became the first rating agency to downgrade U.S. debt, prompting Washington to announce civil charges against S&P and scare the hell out of others so that not a single one will dare speak again of downgrading U.S. creditworthiness. But the DOJ is standing strong in its conviction S&P defrauded the taxpayer by scheming against a federally insured institution. For Newsy, Katie Brennan, multiple sources, The Real Story.
So, of course, there's S&P saying, well, we use the media in order to release our findings, but we don't like the media focusing on our faults.
Yes, and of course everybody else was doing it. He was doing it too.
I know, I love it. And of course, nobody pays attention to the fact that it's Goldman Sachs that employs S&P. Okay?
And no one's paying attention to the fact that even if they do get prosecuted by the DOJ, the penalty is not going to be that great. Look what happened with HSBC.
So the death penalty for shareholders in companies that, are evil. How about that? I think that would end the corporate personhood thing. Okay,
Maybe.
You own shares in this? Okay, you lose a finger,
Of course, there is one group of activists out there who have a little bit to say about what's been going on.
Let's run it.
Someone has broken into the National Bank, the Federal Reserve, a 21st century thief breaking into files, not into metal safes. The mysterious group, Anonymous, has struck again with a warning. This is just the beginning. ABC's senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas tells us who these people are.
This is the public face of Anonymous, the shadowy group behind the hacking attack on the Federal Reserve, which sets monetary policy for the U.S. economy. Anonymous is a loosely affiliated network of hackers spread across the globe. During the hack of the Fed, Anonymous stole the login credentials of some 4,000 bankers from across the country, allowing the group to potentially disrupt a key emergency communication system.
Citizens of the world, we have seen the erosion of due process, the dilution of constitutional rights.
Greg House, a former member of Anonymous, says expect more attacks on the government.
All these big bankers and all these big rich people who have caused a lot of the problems we've had for the last few years are not getting prosecuted.
Pierre Thomas, ABC News.
And we would like to thank Anonymous for being out there and doing the good work that you're doing.
They are aware of the fact of fiat currency, that banks make money up out of nothing, and that the Fed is devaluing the currency of the nation.
Yes. We lost our penny directly by the way they devalue our currency.
Yes. Are they going to round everything up now?
That's exactly what's happening. If you watch the lamestream media, they're talking about rounding up and rounding down. It's going to make a difference of billions, but of course, that's our devalued currency. Let's see what the Fed had to say.
The Federal Reserve's admitted one of its internal websites was hacked, raising questions about cyber security at the U.S. Central Bank. It stressed that none of its critical functions were affected. The hacker activist group Anonymous claimed to have accessed Fed computers last weekend, stealing personal information about more than 4,000 U.S. bank executives, which it then posted on the internet. Reportedly, that was taken from a Fed contact database for use during a natural disaster.
Of course, they're downplaying what was going on because they don't want to appear vulnerable.
Well, they give the names and addresses and log information of 40,000 bankers, but it's not a problem.
No, that's not a problem because we're still printing money from nowhere. We do say this all the time. I flash it on the screen, but now we got time to give you the actual explanation. So let's run the clip that shows how they make money up out of nowhere.
Excellent idea.
Since 1971, when President Nixon took the United States off what was left of the gold standard, the world has operated under a system of money called fiat. The dollar, the pound, the euro are all government fiat currencies. Fiat is a Latin word meaning let it be so. It is the law that this government currency be money. Indeed, without that legal enforcement, and the fact that we must pay taxes in this money, that dollar bill or that computer digit that represents a dollar would be pretty much meaningless. Only the government has the power to issue fiat money, but banks can create it through lending. If somebody wants to borrow $10, a bank can create it from nowhere and lend it. It can then charge interest. Banks also create money by lending against an asset, such as a house. They're given the deeds to the house, and they create the money out of nowhere and lend it, at interest, of course. But who benefits? Of course, those that have the power to issue money, governments and banks. They haven't had to do anything productive, they just create money. However money is created, be it through lending, fractional reserve banking, financial bailouts, or old-fashioned money printing, banks are always at or near the top of the money-issuing pyramid. In reality, this process of creating money only redistributes wealth from the bottom to the top of the pyramid. And thus that ever-increasing gulf between rich and poor gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Just remember that the truth is out there. As if you are a commercial bank, you are a chartered bank, you're allowed to make money up out of nowhere.
Wasn't it Yogi Bear who said, it's amazing what you can find when you look?
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Ah, yes, indeed. But we're going to bring you the news and information. Get informed. It's only government policy and banks' monetary system that's made up out of nowhere, and that's created the poverty that we have today. It's as easy to change as a stroke of a pen or a vote that counts.
Yeah.
Okay. So stay tuned, get informed, and make sure you check our facts. Remember, watch The Four Horsemen on YouTube. Make sure you watch Zeitgeist. It's not a search engine. And stay tuned for more. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
This is Radio Free Canada. Canada used to have what is called a social safety net. That net used to consist of welfare and UI checks, and it ensured that people would not have to steal to live. But now there are no effective social safety nets left, except for the richest of the rich. How does it work? Well, it's pretty simple. Major corporations are awarded subsidies, tax breaks, and eased regulations, and you are not. Not convinced? Just remember that you pay 65% of your wages in taxes, and Canadian banks, corporations, pay no taxes at all. But things are changing. From Egypt to Toronto, from Victoria to Halifax, people are winning battles by standing up for what is right. People like me and you. On January 28th, we are asking you to go to your city hall at 12 noon all across the country. Spread this video around and stand up against corporate welfare and get our safe streets back in an effective way.